This is Parker Hesse.
This is Sam Branks.
You have the pleasure of listening to Hawkeyes and Tallboys. Cheers, motherfuckers.
Welcome to the Hawkeyes and Tallboys podcast, featuring your hosts, Beau Freeborn.
You know, guys, even though we get 2 conference losses, we're still going to end up 9-3. We're going to win the West, for sure.
Dylan Pond.
Here's the thing, fellas. I'm going with it. 12-0, baby. We're going to do it. Let's fucking go. Woo!
And Rob Wall.
I mean, that would be shocking. But we can do it. I mean, I think we can.
So crack a tall boy and go Hawks.
Welcome in to another episode of Hawkeyes and Tallboys. My name's Rob.
I'm Dylan.
I'm Beau.
And then today we have a special guest to help us preview the the Indiana week here. We got Freddie Coudret, Indiana superfan. Welcome to him on as our special guest. So cheers, you guys.
Hey, welcome, Freddie. Cheers, buddy.
I almost called you an Iowa fan there, Freddie. Sorry, buddy.
Hey, like I said, I was an Iowa basketball fan for 3 years. That was the least I could do.
Yep. So before the podcast, Freddie was letting us know one of his good friends was Jack Nungy, which all the best to him and his future endeavors. You said, where is he playing these days?
Xavier.
So it's a pretty awesome program to go to. So cheers to him and all the best to him on his recovery from his knee injury. That we were really sad to see that happen, especially for him coming off he just lost his dad and was in another injury before that. So, but not to dwell on those type of things. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Freddie.
No, I was just going to say, I think it was another knee injury before that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he was a 2-time ACL tear.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So hopefully he gets recovered and gets back on the floor, because when he's on the floor, he's a hell of a ball player, but just got to be on the floor to do that.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to get this episode together so we can preview our first game of the season. Last week we had Leah Van on, the first woman Hawkeye beat reporter for the CR Gazette. This week we got on, obviously Freddie Coudret, Indiana superfan. This season, if you're sensing a theme here, we were going to try to have guests on every week to give us their own insights on the teams that we play. So that way we can provide Hawkeye fans and whoever decides to listen to us, Hawkeyes and Tallboys fans, all the best information, the latest information regarding the Hawkeye sports. So happy to have you, Freddie, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Perfect, man. And it sounded like you broke up there, so I don't know if you need to switch up the Wi-Fi or whatnot, but all good. We can roll with it. So I just kind of want to start off here with some questions and answers with you, Freddie. Kind of wanted to talk to us about your fandom, how you became an Indiana Hoosier fan, I think, and then we can kind of take things from there.
Yeah. So I've been a fan as long as I can remember. I mean, my dad was at IU for a couple of years, and he'd been a fan growing up. So it was kind of just instilled in me to be an Indiana fan. And even as a lot of people know, we haven't, we have the most losses in Division I history as a football program. But even at that, my dad kind of, and in his heyday, IU was good then too. They had a few good years in the 80s with Anthony Thompson, couple of guys like that. Early 90s with Trent Green at quarterback. Last time we won a bowl game was Trent Green.
Green, there's a name.
Guys like that. So he's always been an IU football fan too. That I grew up watching it, as bad as it was when I was younger, but yeah, I've just always been a fan, man.
Freddie, there's something to be said for that. It's very, very uncommon to see Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders fans here in the state of Iowa. However, similar to you, I was instilled as a Raider fan, from birth. They got pictures of me in that Raiders onesie. And obviously, probably similar to you, I had a bit of a rough childhood being a Raider fan. And there's something about that, man. Loyalty. I respect it.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's around here. I don't know if you guys have heard of the reversible jacket fans, but that's a real problem in Indiana. It's Notre Dame football fans and IU basketball fans. There's not a lot of fans of one, but they like both. So it's nice to be one that's not a reversible jacket fan. I'll tell you that.
Well, there you go. And the state of Indiana is not known for their basketball or anything, are they, Freddie?
No, definitely not. Not that we have. I think it was 16 of the largest 20 high school gyms in America. Yeah, no big deal.
Wow.
So, well, cool. And then I know you were telling us a little bit before the podcast as well, but just give the listeners a little bit of your background as well. Obviously, you grew up an Indiana fan. Did you go to school there, or tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so like I said, just growing up here, Southern Indiana, Bloomington's not far away. It's about an hour and a half from me. I didn't go to IU. I actually went, like I told you guys, I played football, Division III level. My first 2.5 years of college, I played at DePaul, actually under former IU head coach Bill Lynch.
Okay.
So I played there for a couple years, and then I came home, graduated from University of Southern Indiana. But I mean, IU always holds a special place in my heart. I mean, it's even though I didn't go there, I'll always be a big fan. You don't have to go to school there to be a big fan. That's what I.
Yeah, a lot of people say the same thing about Iowa too. They're like, well, you can't claim Iowa as your school because you didn't go there. But there's so many people in the state of Iowa that don't go to Iowa, but they love the Hawks. They feel like it's the same thing. But so you played football for 2.5 years. So then did you end up going and tailgating a lot of games or going to a lot of games in Bloomington after you were done playing football, or what was that like?
Yeah, I actually I went to 2 while I was at DePaul. And playing, and unfortunately, the only fall that I ever had not playing football was just my senior year, and it was 2020, so I couldn't go to games. But I ended up going to a couple. Fall break, we had football off, and I got to go to a couple. The last game I actually went to was Rutgers in 2019, so it wasn't exactly the most exciting game, but tailgates are a lot of fun. So when it's a game like that, you can always go back out to the tailgates.
So what is the tailgating experience like there? Because at Iowa, it's kind of all spread out and just a ton of Hawk fans just getting fucked up on Saturdays. What's it like over in Bloomington?
That's much the same story in Bloomington. I mean, it's a big tailgating field. I actually, at the time, I had a cousin who was in a sorority at IU, so I got to go into went to a couple frat parties and then went to the tailgate field. So I think I got a little different experience than most people would, but going back out to the tailgate fields, I mean, it's the same. I mean, you're running into people, you got to stop, talk, have a beer with them for a little bit and all that. And it's like everywhere you turn, there's someone, or someone you're with knows. And it's a fun time.
So is it just like a big field, you said?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just it's a big grass field that it's literally just called the tailgating lot, and everyone can just pull up and park.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's not far from. It's literally across the street from the stadium. So
I hate to bring them up, but it sounds a lot like Ames. I mean, they have just kind of this big area where people tailgate at too. So same thing over in Iowa State.
Absolutely. And then one question, getting back to your little Q&A here, Freddie. For those of us not big Big Ten or not big Indiana fans, we got to know, what does Leo stand for?
Leo, that is love each other. That's Tom Allen brought with him. I think he started it when he was defensive coordinator, just kind of as something he would preach to everybody. And since he became head coach, and he actually said it in his opening press conference when they announced him as head coach. And it's just kind of become a way of life, not only for the football program, but fans. I mean, it's almost like saying Roll Tide to another Alabama fan. If you're an Alabama fan, you say Leo, like everyone knows what it is. I think it's an awesome thing to have, part of your favorite program, part of your life. I mean, it's that's the way Tom Allen runs his program. And I think it works, because you saw, I mean, it was the viral clip after we beat Wisconsin last year. They were doing the interview with him on the field, and the whole team was walking by as they were going back into the locker room, and so many guys would stop and pat Tom Allen on the back or jump on him and like, Leo, this is the best coach in America. We love him. And I mean, that's just the way to run your program. I think it's awesome.
That's pretty cool. It reminded me immediately of like semi-pro, where he's like, ELE, everybody love everybody.
We traded Monix for a washing machine.
So I know you've had a couple successful seasons the last couple of years under Tom Allen. I mean, what do you think about him as a coach, and how do you like it the way he's directing this team so far?
I think it's awesome. It's almost a complete 180 from Kevin Wilson. And even before Kevin Wilson, the couple coaches before, Bill Lynch was actually the guy before Kevin Wilson, the guy I played for. And before that, Terry Hepner, Terry Hepner was kind of he was kind of like a Tom Allen in a sense, where he was building a program like that, and IU was starting to have a little bit of success, and he passed away from cancer suddenly. And but where I was going with it was the guys before Tom Allen were all offense centric. I mean, IU was known for putting up a ton of points, but giving up more points to the other team. I mean, that was literally like the last 15 years of IU football. And Tom Allen comes in, defensive coordinator for 1 year, immediately turns the defense around. I think he moved from like the defensive stats, most of them, it was either 13th or dead last in the Big Ten. And he immediately moved up to the middle of the pack in 1 year. And it's just steadily grown since he's been defensive coordinator and now head coach. It's a defensive centric team, which is something it's been crazy to see. And the offense didn't really lag after that happened either. He's hired the right guys at offense, because he's a defensive guy, but he's hired the right guys at offense. Nick Sheridan, great. We had Kalen DeBoer before, and now head coach at Fresno State. And then he brought in Nick Sheridan, and both of those guys have been running hell of an offense too. So
he's talking about. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, well, it certainly was impressive last year watching you guys, start off the season beating Penn State in overtime, and then, continuing on. Your first loss was to Ohio State, and then you went out. Now, obviously, I think you would have beat the other two. You would have played Purdue twice in a row towards the end of the season or something like that, and then those were canceled, and then it was the bowl game.
I think Champions Week game we were scheduled against you guys.
Oh, really?
I think we were supposed to play Michigan, or were we Indiana? I thought for some reason I thought it was Michigan, and then Michigan failed the COVID protocol, and then we ended up having to supposed to play Missouri in the bowl game. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that's right. Yeah, but I don't know how it would have worked out. Maybe they scheduled Michigan later.
I was going to say, I think Freddie's initially right, where it was supposed to be Indiana, but did you guys have a COVID outbreak or something? Do you remember, Freddie?
Yeah.
Then I remember it bumped down to Michigan, who had a horrible record. So I think everybody was expecting Iowa to just throttle them, and then they came down
Yeah.
with COVID too.
Yeah, because it was 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, and we were both 2 in the West and East respectively. So I think initially it was Indiana, Iowa, and then right before the bucket game, both Purdue and IU had COVID outbreaks. So neither game happened. I don't know. Did any Champions Week games happen besides the actual championship game?
Honestly, I'm not sure on that. I'd have to go back and look. I have no idea.
No, I don't think so. I don't think they did actually. I think they just like played it.
But yeah, it was the COVID outbreak, and it was a long wait to play Ole Miss. And you know, I was expecting us to roll over Ole Miss. Honestly, I was. The program, you could tell by what Tom Allen was saying in interviews, by what fans were saying on Twitter, and everyone collectively was extremely pissed off by the way the selection committee treated us. So, you know, we got paired with Ole Miss, and we're like, oh shit, we're gonna beat the hell out of them. I mean, they're 5. I mean, guys throw, and then Mike Penix goes down. He went down against Maryland a couple weeks before, but Jack Tuttle looked good against Wisconsin. But that was the only game he had. But he looked good, so we thought we were in good shape. And I don't know if it was just that the focus wasn't there because of how pissed off they were about the selection committee, or how long the wait was before they played. But absolute lackluster performance, and it kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And I think they're ready to go for week 1. So
there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
and just wanted to point this out quick here, fellas. Just looked it up. So regarding Champions Week last year, a few games did go down. So Nebraska beat Rutgers. Obviously, Ohio State and Northwestern played in the Big Ten championship. Wisconsin and Minnesota played, as well as Penn State and Illinois, but all other contests were canceled that week.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Indiana, they ended their season with a win. Well, hold on, sorry, not officially, but I'm saying like they beat Wisconsin Saturday, December 5th. They played the Outback Bowl Saturday, January 2nd against Ole Miss. So almost a full month of no game action, which I think could affect any team, especially losing your starting quarterback. So now, moving forward to 2021, you guys got Penix back.
yeah,
We can get into the preview here, guys, of what this Indiana team is going to do.
Absolutely.
So with Penix, it was kind of just a hope for a long time that, you know, he's going to be ready for week 1 next year. And as time went on and they had spring practice, he was I think he was really just throwing the ball around and doing some drills here and there, but he was never really playing. And Tom Allen's only quotes were, we are hoping he's ready for week 1. That's really all you got out of it. And then fall camp comes around and he's going. I mean, he's going full bore. And I think it was actually just yesterday that Tom Allen said he's 100% ready and he's going to be a starting quarterback for week 1. So I think there's going to be some rust. And I won't be surprised if he doesn't have a good first half or something like that. Because it's been a long time since he's played football, and he's battled through injuries before. I mean, this is pretty much the exact same thing that happened week 1 last year, because he was coming off a shoulder injury from 2019, where Peyton Ramsey took over the team and led us to a bowl game and the debacle against Tennessee that year. But yeah, he went down 2019 and it was kind of the same thing, but he came back and he didn't look very good against Penn State. I don't know if you guys watched that game or have watched highlights. He really didn't turn it on until fourth quarter and overtime. But once he gets that rust off, I think he's going to be back to being top tier quarterback in the Big Ten for sure, if not the country.
You know, I really liked you bringing up that Penn State game, and really you look at all the games except for that Wisconsin game where he didn't play. I mean, they're putting up 24 plus points a game. So even though he didn't play well that first game, they still scored 36 points against a good Penn State team. So we know that him and the offense has a lot of potential. Now, let me ask you this, Freddie, and this may be, you know, you can give me a homer answer if you want to, but now that Justin Fields is gone, do you think that Michael Penix is the best quarterback in the Big Ten?
I do. I absolutely do think Michael Penix is the best quarterback in the Big Ten. And I mean, I think that's just, you're right. It's process of elimination. Fields won first team last year and Penix won second team. Fields is gone. So you just have to think Penix is the next guy to be the best. And, you know, I understand he is coming off an ACL tear. So be it. I understand that, you know, people don't think he's going to be as good coming off that injury. And everything I've seen, they're ranking CJ Stroud ahead of Mike Penix. And that irks me to no end because that guy's not played football yet. He has not played a single down of college football. You have no idea what's going to happen. I understand he's a 5-star, and you know, these guys that come into Ohio State, they're most of the time, I mean, it's a quarterback factory, at least a college quarterback factory. These guys are good immediately, but you really don't know because he hasn't played yet. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what Stroud does, but I do think Penix, at least outside of Stroud, I think there's a big drop off after Penix and Stroud, because after that you really have Tanner Morgan and then John Clifford, and they both kind of had lackluster years last year. So I think Penix is the guy.
Stroud is already a Heisman hopeful too. I think he's already 4th or 5th on the list too, which is crazy.
And I'm with Freddie there. That's just ridiculous to me. But I mean, we could sit here and argue with preseason awards all day long, and obviously at the end of the day they mean nothing. But my thing with Penix too, because I've heard some Iowa fans talking about this, where it's like, well, okay, he's going to lose that mobile element now that, you know, he's torn his ACL. It's like, whatever. I don't buy that. If you go back and watch the film from 2020 in particular, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Freddie, I wouldn't even necessarily call him a full-blown dual threat. I think he was more of a really solid pocket passer that can make plays with his feet when needed. You know, it didn't seem like he was like a run every 4 downs kind of back. I guess, am I wrong there? Or?
No, that's what I was going to say if you didn't bring it up. Because you're right. He really, I think he gets that rap because he can make plays on his feet, and he is a very athletic quarterback. But you're right. You go watch the film from 2019 and 2020. He's definitely not looking to tuck it and run. I mean, he's making his reads. He's going down to a second and third before he tucks it and runs, because he's got an absolute cannon. I mean, he actually had the highest percentage on deep balls in all of college football last year, completion percentage on deep balls. He's got an arm on him, but he can make plays with his legs, and he is mobile, at least within the pocket. He can move around, but I think you're right. He's a pocket guy, so I don't think it affects that much. As much as people think on the surface.
Right. And that's another thing I've heard, Iowa fans touch on a little bit too, is it's like, okay, yeah, Penix is stud, but you know, what kind of weapons do they have around him? And shit, just looking at the 2020, all Big Ten teams you had, and this is teams obviously 1, 2, and 3, but you got, Freifogel, who's a absolute monster of a wide receiver. I think he's going to be playing on Sundays, sooner than later. And then one guy I think a lot of non-Indiana fans don't know, but Peyton Hendershot too, absolute stud tight end, and he just jumps out at the film specifically from the 2021 season. So, if you think if Iowa's defense thinks they're going to get away doubling Freifogel all day, they're surely mistaking. So, tell us a little bit more about, some of your offensive weapons you guys got.
Yeah, so the receiving core was definitely a very bright spot last year. Ty Freifogel, Big Ten Receiver of the Year. He had what was it, 350 yards against Ohio State. So unreal game there, but he did it all year. And you had Whop Fillier last year too, who was a guy. I'll kind of lump him in with Peyton Hendershot. They both had big 2019 seasons, and they both kind of fell off. Even if you consider that there's less games last year, they both kind of fell off. But Freifogel picked up the slack. I think Hendershot's gonna have another year. He was still great last year. Don't get me wrong, but he had a great 2019 season. I think he's ready to have another one. And you lose Whop Philly, but I don't think a lot of people realize they absolutely retooled at wide receiver. They brought in DJ Matthews from Florida State, who he was a 5-star out of high school. He was pretty damn good at Florida State, and except I kind of put it in perspective that in his time at Florida State didn't really have a quarterback. I mean, they started Alex Hornibrook for a season. Are you kidding me? So
that guy.
That perspective that DJ Matthews was as good as he was without a quarterback, really. And now you put him with Mike Penix next to Ty Freifogel. And then you have Miles Marshall. He was pretty good last year. He was the third option last year. I think he's gonna move up to the second option this year with Whop Fillier gone. But he was pretty good last year too. You know, when those guys were covered, he came up big. He was always he had pretty much a game-saving catch against Penn State where he was, you know, full out dive, brought it in. He had catches like that all year where, you know, he would maybe only have 3 or 4 receptions a game, maybe even 2, and they would be big catches when he was needed. So I think they absolutely retooled at receiver, and there's no reason to think that that you're right, that there's no reason to think you can double Freifogel and get away with it.
And when you're talking about the transfer portal too, you also got Stephen Carr, and I heard that Coach Allen said that he's already going to be your starter too. What does the depth look like at running back too for this game?
Yeah, running back something that, and I think a lot of this is, you know, people on the surface don't necessarily look into a whole lot of it. Running back, you lose Stevie Scott, who was, I think he ended up being third team All Big Ten last year. Maybe it was just honorable mention, but he was a big back who came up big in short yardage situations. If you needed a first down, if you needed a touchdown on the goal line, that dude was getting it. I mean, there was no stopping the Stevie truck, I'll tell you that. But you get Stephen Carr to come in, and he's one who was plagued with injuries at USC. And I think it's huge that he came in, because I think the reason he came in, even though it hasn't really been said, running back coach McCullough, he left IU in 2017 to go to USC. Then he left USC, and he was the running backs coach for the Chiefs. And then he came back to IU, which is incredible. You know, he was a Super Bowl champion. He was actually NFL running back coach of the year they won the Super Bowl. And now he's back at IU. But he recruited Stephen Carr to USC. He was a 5-star, big name out of high school, and he brought him back to IU with him. And I think if he stays healthy, there's no reason to think there's going to be any drop off from Stevie Scott. And the running back room was so deep that Samson James left IU. I don't know if you remember Samson James. He was the number 2 back last year, and he didn't get a ton of carries, but he was a 4-star out of high school, and he was originally committed to Ohio State, and IU flipped him to Indiana. And he left because he was actually 3rd string on the depth chart, and he transferred to Purdue literally 2 weeks ago. So if that tells you anything, that a former 4-star back's transferring out of IU because he's not going to get touches, that's certainly a good thing.
Yeah, it's going to be a new look for you guys. It's going to be a lot of guys that we haven't really seen play with Indiana. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I wanted to say earlier when you touched on Miles Marshall, he stands out on the depth chart when you look at him because he's 6'4", 212, and that's not including his hair.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing I think helps. You look at all three guys who are listed as starting receivers for Indiana. Ty Fryfogel's a big dude. DJ Matthews, I think he's listed at 6'5". Is what last time I looked, if I'm remembering right. I think he's listed at 6'5". They got big dudes out at receiver. And
maybe not DJ Matthews. He's 5'9.5".
Yeah, okay, maybe. But yeah, he is 5'9". Regardless, Freifogel, we do know he's a tall dude.
Yeah.
He's got long arms. He can get up there and get those 50-50 balls. And yeah, they got the weapons out there, and I'm really excited to see what Penix can do, because even though he may be hobbled coming back from an injury, he's got guys to throw it to. So
see, and yeah, it's just so funny, as impressive as all that is, because obviously Indiana has a ton of weapons returning, and obviously a few coming in from the transfer portal as well. But you look at what they have returning on defense, and that's what, as a Hawk fan, scares me a little bit, and I want you to touch on that as well. But again, just all defensive Big Ten in 2020 guys that are returning. So you look at Micah McFadden at linebacker, Taiwan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that one.
Yeah, Taiwan Mullen,
Trayvon Mullen's brother. I had a note, Raider Nation. Here we go. But then you look at him, and then Devin Matthews at safety, and then Jalen Williams at cornerback. I mean, that's a lot of guys. A lot of guys getting some all Big Ten recognition. So I know you touched on it earlier, but tell me a little bit about your guys' defense coming into this year.
Yeah, and the crazy part is, you mentioned Jalen Williams. He's not even going to be the starting cornerback. They're having
that's wild.
Yeah, Reese Taylor's lining up opposite of Taiwan Mullen there, former Indiana Mr. Football. He actually came in as a quarterback. He played quarterback at Ben Davis High School, and they tried that in receiver his freshman year, and then moved him over to corner. And he's been he's figured it out. He's been a big help over there, and he's finally getting the starting role. And he's been a punt returner, kick returner too. But yeah, there's a ton of guys. And I think when the season ended and they were giving out the awards, I think we had 7 guys make all Big Ten defensive honors, and 6 of them are returning. The only one that's not returning is Jamar Johnson, who just made the roster for the Broncos, which is crazy because there's so many guys that IU gets. You think they can make the league, and Jamar Johnson's the first one in a little bit that makes a roster, and you finally start seeing those guys in the NFL, which is really cool. But yeah, they have a ton of guys. Micah McFadden's been an absolute monster at linebacker. He was a guy I actually got into a little argument on Twitter just yesterday, and another IU fan was making fun of Louisville for getting a commitment out of like the 1100th best recruit in his class, with offers from like Buffalo and Miami. And I said, you know what? That's all well and good that we're not those guys anymore, but those guys are also some of the best players we have. Micah McFadden had 2 FBS offers, or 2 Power 5 offers. Sorry, 2 Power 5 offers out of high school. It was Boston College and Indiana, and now he's a top 5 linebacker in the country. But they also brought in Ryder Anderson from Ole Miss, starting D end. He was someone who made a big impact on their defense, and I can even remember that from the bowl game, just the one Ole Miss game I watched. Ryder Anderson made an impact, and now he's on our side.
Well, I was going to
so
say,
I-
now it makes sense why you guys didn't show up in the bowl game. Tom Allen's busy over there just recruiting the whole time.
Yeah, he's trying
Makes
to take
sense.
guys from the other side because we just got one of their safeties. I don't remember his name, but just last week he decided to transfer here from Ole Miss. So you got two of those guys. So he was just busy trying to recruit guys from the other
No doubt.
sideline.
Tampering.
He saw all that Leo talk, and he was like, "Hey, let me get a part of that."
I think Lane Kiffin's preaching Leo down there.
It's interesting because I was looking, just like researching Indiana's defense, because they play like a 4-2-5. It looks like defensive scheme. But if you look at their depth chart, I got questions because it's like they list a D end in Ryder Anderson. They got their 2 D tackles, and they got somebody listed as Bull
And Husky.
Bull and Husky. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like I have a little bit better understanding of this defense because this is actually what I played in when I played at DePaul. We had it's basically the Bull and the Husky are hybrid linebacker and defensive linemen. They're supposed to do both. So they're kind of lined up. Sometimes you're lined up right even with the line. Sometimes you're back with the linebackers. Depending on what's going on, you're covering the pass or you're rushing. So you have these guys that, that's another guy that you want to look at is Marcelino McCrary Ball. He's a 6th-year senior. He's gotten hurt a couple times since he's been at IU, but he was one of those guys that when Tom Allen first came in, and he was healthy, he was all over the field, man. I mean, he was the guy on defense, 2018, 2019. And he was hurt 2 years ago. He was hurt all year last year, and now he's back. I think he's a big help back because he's been described as kind of the heart and soul of the defense. And you look at what the defense did last year without him. But I think he's a big help. But yeah, these guys are basically you find the most athletic big guy on your team, and you put him at Bull and Husky. And that's what you get, guys that are able to fight off offensive linemen, but also be able to cover a receiver downfield. So those guys are big impacts on the defense.
So I had heard the Husky position was similar to the cash position that we run, but instead of it being more of a D-line linebacker hybrid, it's more of a linebacker safety cornerback hybrid. So when Iowa runs that 4-2-5 also, we're going to have more of a cash player be more of a safety linebacker hybrid, which I'm sure you'll see probably a lot of this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely. With Indiana's weapons on offense, I think you have to play the cash. So I know they're talking about, potentially still having that 3-man rotation in at linebacker, but you're going to see a lot of Dane Belton this week. So, and it makes sense because they got weapons all over the field and they got Penix that can sling. So yeah, you'll see that a lot. And another thing I saw on film that I wanted to get your opinion on too, Freddie, because I might be crazy, but it seems like that Indiana defense, they blitz a shit ton. You look at those, some of the stats and the yards per play aren't necessarily there, but turnovers just jumped off the stat sheet. And every highlight you see, God, it looks like you had 3-4 guys blitzing. So am I crazy there, or what'd you see?
No. So you're right. Even with the Bull and the Husky positions, I think that kind of makes it look like we're blitzing more than we actually are with that defense. Because like I said, basically it's a couple guys that line up on the line standing up that aren't necessarily defensive linemen. So it looks like they're rushing and blitzing all the time. But
Right.
Even at that, we had corners blitz all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We love corner blitzes. And at least once a game, you would get a big sack out of a corner. And Tywon Mullen did it a ton, where he was he was at least pressuring a quarterback because he's coming off the edge like a bullet. That dude's fast as hell. And I think it's awesome. They're taking chances. They're blitzing a lot, blitzing corners, and it works. I don't know if teams are going to be more ready for it this year, but there was no reason to think you couldn't watch the film and be ready for it after game 1 last year. So we'll see.
So our good friend Kirk Ferentz watches or listens to our podcast. So we want to know from you, what does Iowa need to do to beat Indiana? Do you think it's going to be more on the offensive side of the ball, or do you think it's going to be more turnover battle, field position, like a classic Big Ten game? What does Iowa need to do to at least be close, if not beat Indiana this weekend?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with making it a classic Big Ten game. I mean, that's what I get out of Iowa football. I mean, it's the most classic Big Ten football you can think is Iowa, So they got to make it a knockdown drag out on the defensive side. They can't let the big plays happen. That's what Ohio State did last year to let Indiana stay in the game. They would just give up big play after big play, and I think that's what Indiana does to people is get the big play here and there and keep yourself in the game, and then put them away. But if you can prevent the big play and just kind of keep them trying to run the ball, because granted, we said Stephen Carr thinks going to be a good player, but there may be some questions at offensive line, and we don't know what Stephen Carr is going to look like yet. So if you Indiana run the ball and you make it a knockdown, drag out Big Ten game, I think that's what it takes. Because I mean, we're not going to lie to ourselves. Spencer Petras isn't going to throw the ball all over Indiana.
Whoa! We've heard a lot of improvement.
He's taking a step forward, Freddie.
That's right.
For all intensive purposes, apparently, according to practice.
I'm sure he has taken steps forward, but Indiana has one of, if not the best secondary in the Big Ten.
Okay, yeah, and I think so. If you were to pose the same question to us, like, what do we think Indiana would need to do really well to put the Hawks in a tough position to win the game? I think it comes down to what you said with Stephen Carr being more or less the X factor, because that is a big question mark. How good is he going to be? Is he going to be ripping off 5 yards at a time? And also just letting Penix be able to be comfortable in the pocket. I think it's going to come down to the defensive line, which is a little bit of a question mark on our defense. Our secondary we're returning everyone, and so we feel pretty confident in that. But you guys want to echo that? I think that is going to be sort of the war in the trenches there on the defensive side for the Hawks to see, if we can contain the Indiana offense. I feel pretty good about our offense, having not seen these guys play, but I guess this iteration of them, but they looked great, and we were turning most of the playmakers from last year. So.
Absolutely, Rob. You hit it on the head right there. I think, the D line, we got to be able to put pressure on Penix. If you just sit back there and let him throw around all day with the weapons they got on offense, that Iowa defense is going to have a really, really long day. So we got to get pressure on them, whether that's, looking to blitz Jack Campbell, throwing in some corner blitzes, getting a little bit creative there. I think as soon as you let him get comfortable, then Iowa's going to be in trouble. So getting pressure on him is absolutely massive. And then Freddie touched on it as well, which I think it's a absolutely perfect segue into Dylan's keys for an Iowa Hawkeye.
I was going to say that. I was like, you're getting dangerously close to Dylan's keys to the game here.
That's right. So, all righty. So we'll just start with defense since I'm already on a roll there. So the number one thing I had written down was limit big plays. You watch the film on Indiana, it seems like, with the exception of a few goal line plays where, you saw Stevie or you saw Penix running it in kind of thing, a lot of their touchdowns come from big plays. And again, like Freddie touched on, Penix deep ball completion percentage is just through the roof. So if Iowa can limit those big plays to, hold them to 2-3 touchdowns, you're going to give yourselves a chance to win. And I keep forgetting the stat, but it's like 15, 16, 17 games where Iowa's held all offenses under 28, 26 points, something like that.
24.
24. Thank you.
Yeah. It's
So,
more.
I mean,
It lasted all season last year.
right. Absolutely. So, I mean, you got to keep that going. And from then on as well, this IU defense, they're known for turning the football over. So, or getting turnovers, I should say, to eliminate confusion. So Iowa's got to win the turnover margin. We got to see some picks. We talked about it a little bit about Penix potentially being a little bit rusty. So, if we can get some fumbles on the run, that kind of thing, we have to get turnovers. It's going to be imperative to win this game. Indiana is not the slouch Indiana that we're used to. You're not going to hang 40 points on them and only worry about them, scoring under 20. They're going to score points. They got a tough D. So we got to play classic Big Ten football on the defensive side of the ball, and then look at the offensive side of the football. So if you remember in Spencer Petras' first 2 games last year when Iowa started 0-2, I can't remember exactly how many turnovers he had, but I think 5 turnovers. Thank you, Beau. So 5 interceptions were those, or is there some fumbles in there? Whatever the case is, we have to limit them. Can't happen. Offense has got to play tough. It's got to play smart as well, which I think in the preseason, typically Kirk Ferentz teams are pretty good about that, playing a little bit more on the conservative side, worrying about time of possession and that sort of thing. So if we can drag this out, make this a battle of the trenches throughout the game, I think Iowa's going to have a damn good shot to win this game in the fourth quarter, which brings me to my final and maybe most important point, and Freddie might laugh at this one. Special teams will win this game. So I'm thinking right now, Torrey Taylor, Big Ten punter of the year returning, a field position is going to be absolutely crucial. We know Indiana has the big play threats. So if we can have them backed up, inside of their own 20 most of the game, yeah, they're going to score. They have an excellent offense. It's going to happen. But if we can limit that through special teams, through that field position game, I think Iowa's going to have a lot of success. And both teams have great returning kickers as well. So that's what I got. That's my not necessarily my hot take, but that's what I'm thinking. Special teams will win this game. What do you guys think?
I like that. And I think it's actually a really good segue to go right into hot takes. And Freddie, we kind of talked about this before we got on today, but want to know what your hot take's going to be, not only for this Indiana-Iowa game, but Indiana's season so far or this year. Give us a couple hot takes for what you think is going to happen or what you expect this weekend and for the season.
Yeah. So this weekend, really, I'm expecting Iowa to be winning at halftime. I think with the combination of Penix being rusty, it being at Kinnick, which is, no matter what way you slice it, Kinnick's a tough place to play. No matter how good or bad Iowa is, it's Kinnick Stadium. It's a hell of a place to play. I think with the combination of those two things, I don't think it's going to be a question that Iowa's probably going to be winning at halftime. But I think IU puts it together. I think we win this game. So I think that's and I think we could win by more than 7. I really do. I mean, just with the way the offense was rolling, even without Penix last year, looking at that Wisconsin game, I think they can put it together, win by 10. That's what I'll throw as a hot take. 10-point Indiana. But for the season overall, I think it's going to be a tough one. I mean, Indiana has a really tough schedule if you really look at it. Week 1's at Iowa, obviously. 2, you got Idaho, so that's nothing. But then you go right into having Cincinnati at home, who's top 10 preseason. You play at Michigan this year. We don't know what Michigan's going to be like, but just like Kinnick, the Big House is a tough place to play, especially for Indiana. I don't know that they've actually ever won at the Big House. But you look at that. You play at Penn State. I don't think we've ever won at Penn State. Yeah, you look at these. We beat Michigan for the first time in forever last year. We beat Penn State for the second time ever last year. but we beat Michigan State. We beat Michigan State a few more times than the others, but you play at Michigan. You have Ohio State at home. I think it's just going to be a tough one overall. So I don't think I think the floor for the team's 8 wins and the ceiling's 10. I just don't think we're going to beat Ohio State. I don't think you get through those 4 games of Iowa, Cincinnati, Penn State, and Michigan. I don't think you get out of there winning all 4 of those. I don't think that's even a question, that you're going to lose at least one of those. So I think the floor is 8, ceiling's 10, and we're going to finish at second in the East again, is what I'm thinking.
Rob, you got any hot takes?
Hot take for this season. Well, let me start off with the game. So I do think that my hot take for this game is that the Hawkeyes are actually going to end up winning this game on a last-minute drive in the 4th quarter. I think Spencer Petras is going to find Sam Laporta in the end zone for a touchdown. I think we're going to come down. I think it's going to be a possession game. It's going to be a classic Big Ten game. I'm sure there'll be turnovers on both sides. But one interesting thing to note about this game, which I think does not help our cause, we are playing at home, but looking back through this opening games all the way back, I looked back all the way till 2003, and that's where, as far as I got, but we have never played a ranked opponent first game, week 1. For the last 18 years. So you could probably even look back through all the time that Kirk Ferentz has coached the Hawks as head coach. I don't know if we've started off playing a ranked opponent first game. And even the games that we have played, and, Dylan and Beau, we always say this on every podcast, it's like we lose when we shouldn't and we win when we shouldn't, usually. And so there are some games when we play the first week where first quarter, first half, we're kind of like, this doesn't look like the Hawkeye football team. We end up putting it together. We usually end up winning because it's usually against somebody like Kent State, But here we are, and we're playing against, a team that made a lot of noise. And so I do think it's going to be a really close game, and I really hope that we pull out the win. I think that we have the capability to do that. So that's going to be my hot take. For the season, I think we're going 11-1. I said it last week. I think that, we can beat everybody on the schedule this year. It's possible that could happen. The one that I thought we would drop was going to be Wisconsin, I'm pretty sure.
It's at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Going to Camp Randall?
Yeah, Camp Randall, yeah.
I could see that.
So, but that's my predictions, and obviously my predictions have always been wrong. I actually predicted Kayvon Merriweather starting strong safety. I predicted him to break out 2 years ago. So, I'm still waiting on him to break out. Kayvon, I'm with you, man. I can't wait for you to watch you get some more snaps this season. So we'll see. Maybe this is
number one on the depth chart now, Rob. So you might be on to something there, man. My hot take. It's a wild one. Freddie's going to laugh at me. Tyler Goodson is going to rush for over 150 yards on Saturday. He will run for over 150 yards. Now, that is the one thing I notice watching film, is not necessarily on a play-to-play thing when it comes to that Indiana defense, because they do got linebackers and guys flying all over the place. But I think that leaves them susceptible to the big runs every now and again. So I don't necessarily think he's going to average 6-7 yards a carry, but I think with a few big runs and hopefully long touchdown runs, he's going to make it to that 150-yard mark. So what do you got, Beau?
Well, thanks for taking mine. I was going to say cumulatively, the Hawks are going to rush for 250 yards. Hot take this weekend. And I was going to say for the same exact reasons. I think that they're going to be, Indiana's defense is going to be keyed in on slowing down the receivers and not too much worried about Tyler Goodson, which I think I say that lightly because I know that a lot of people have, Tyler Goodson being at least a a second team all Big Ten potential running back for this year. So, but I think with the committee we have, I think we can mix it up a lot. I think that we can get some ground game going. But for the hot take for the year, I'm going to go with Spencer Petras. I think he's going to be basically a 180 from what we saw at the beginning of the year last year. And I think he's really going to build on his credentials. I think there's going to be some tough times. There's going to be some growing times. Obviously, we've heard a lot about him having a full spring ball and a really good fall camp. But, what does that look like against, just yourself? Like we have nothing to, put him up against other than, the second string defense or even just the ones of our Iowa secondary. So would love to see how he does against real competition, but from what we hear, he's doing really well. So hoping that, the O-line and D-line stay healthy, but my big hot take for the year is going to be Spencer Petras is going to be a star. So with that, I know
I didn't even think about that. My season hot take. I haven't even done that one.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah, go
so
for
there
it.
you go. I'll drop it real quick. Tyler Goodson's going to win the Doak Walker. He's going to be the best running back in America.
Hot take.
Hot take.
Got to be better than Ibrahim from Minnesota, huh?
Might not even be the best running back in your division.
Get out of here, Freddie. I don't want to hear that. That's why they call it a hot take.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. You're right. That's exactly what a hot take.
So, Freddie, we'll have you go last year because you're kind of the odd man out. But Dill, we'll start with you on predictions. I know it sounds like us three may be all taking the Hawks, but would love to hear what we have for a score right now or, prediction for this weekend. So far, Hawks are favored by 3.5 points at home. Dill, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
So I read a stat today on Twitter that the Hawkeyes are exactly 500 in the past, what was it, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly what it was, but exactly 500 in covering the spread. And so now when you take that back into home openers, now obviously typically you got, Touch My Butt State from Slackville, Arkansas that you're going to be playing, but that's not the case this week. So I think I won't lie to you, Freddie. I had it written down here that my prediction was going to be 31-28 with an Indiana last-second field goal to win. But I talked myself out of it. I'm going the opposite way. And I'm going to say that the Hawkeyes do end up covering the spread at home. So we're going 32-28. Don't ask me how they get 32. Iowa always scores a funky number. It happens. And don't at me when it does. But I'm going Iowa wins this one 32-28.
Rob?
Yeah, that's a good one. So the over under is 46.5 on FanDuel for Indiana versus Iowa.
Hammer the over.
I think it's going to go over too. These are two teams. Well, first off, Iowa tends to not play the best defense right off the bat. And so like you can see, the way that we let David Bell catch the ball when we played against Purdue last year, first game. And so it's just I think Indiana might be a little bit more scary of a passing attack than Purdue. So I do think it's got all the makings for a high scoring game. You know what I mean? We got the high scoring warning alert out right now. The thunderstorm sirens are going off for Saturday's game. It's going to be a lot through the air is what I mean. And so I do think it's going to go over. So but I think Vegas usually has it right on the mark. So I'd like to say that the Hawks win 25-24, which would put them at 49, which would be the over. So that's where I think that we'll be at.
I usually go with these games. I usually go way too high and we come in way too low. So I think the last game that I was not even close to was the Iowa Minnesota game, thinking that it was going to be a huge blow, like scoring game. So Rob, my prediction is really close to you. I think I took Iowa 26-24. I don't know how the hell they're going to get 26 points. I know we're going to use the kicking game a lot, but I got the Hawks scoring 26 points and covering the over, but with the spread under that there as well. So, Freddie, thoughts?
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of what you guys said about Iowa always scoring a weird number. And I know I said 10 points earlier, so I'll go with 35-25 Hoosiers.
Nice.
Okay.
I was thinking how you get to 25. It's literally got to be like 5 field goals or 6 field goals and a touchdown.
Could happen. You got to figure in, a potential failed 2-point conversion in there too. And
Yeah, it could be something like that. I guess, yeah, a couple of them could be like missed extra points.
that could happen.
Yeah,
That's always possible.
It's fun. Crazier shit can happen.
that's true.
Absolutely. So, but now that we got predictions done, we also do got a quick few mailbags from the fans here too. So, Freddie, some of these are mainly Hawkeye related, but feel free to chime in if you feel necessary. So, so this is a good one from buddy Connor. Connor wants to know, guys, which current Hawkeyes remind you of past Hawkeyes? And so I'll just take this one first and be totally nostalgic. So I'm going to say Spencer Petras, Chuck Long, quarterback that won the Big Ten in '85 and took the Hawks to the Rose Bowl. Played a year and didn't necessarily have the greatest year and came back and took the boys to the Rose Bowl. So I'm going Spencer Petras is the next Chuck Long. What do you guys think?
I had Jack Campbell really close to Chad Greenway. Big fan of Chad Greenway, and I think that he's got a lot of potential there. So,
but that's the thing, Jack Campbell's taller though. He's like a
Still
6'6" Chad Greenway, which
dude's
is
a fucking freak no matter
scary.
what. So I'm just saying skill level and talent, Chad Greenway all the way, bud.
There you go. He's gonna eat Michael Penix Jr. What do you think, Rob?
That's a tough one because you got to think about, past guys and who's good on our team, who's going to be like a name that remembers. And one that comes to mind is Tyler Linderbaum. He's got to be, the maybe current reincarnation of Austin Blythe, possibly, who's a center in the NFL.
I like that. Austin Blythe coming from Williamsburg and Solon got that, high school rivalry going on. So I kind of like that answer, Rob. That's a good one. And then we got another question here from one of our loyal listeners who currently lives in Texas, recently moved down there with his lady friend. He says, fellas, how many games can you travel to without the lady getting mad? Now, I think we all have girlfriends. Freddie, do you got a girlfriend?
I do.
Or girlfriend / wife, whatever. Okay. So thankfully mine's in our bedroom, so she can't hear me. But Tom, you should travel to all the games. Now, I've always heard that the key to a healthy marriage is to do first and ask for forgiveness later. Am I wrong, fellas?
Nope. Have as much fun as you can, spend as much as your money as you can. Hell yeah.
For me,
yeah, Tom, long story short, go to every game you can.
I take my fiance. I keep wanting to accidentally call her girlfriend because fiance is fairly a new word for me to use. But but we go everywhere together as a pair. So like, it's usually like if we're traveling, like unless it's for work or something, like we're always doing it together. So, I mean, sorry to burst your bubble, Tom, but I'm taking the old lady with me.
There you go.
I'll agree with that. I'm taking my girlfriend to her first IU game, taking her to the Cincinnati game.
Oh,
and
man.
She's a Notre Dame fan, so I got to go up to one of those games this year.
That'll still be fun.
It'll be. I always wanted to see a game there. Not a Notre Dame fan. Not going to wear a Notre Dame shirt that she got me, but
That's awesome.
Well, I was going to say, Freddie, if Iowa goes ahead and gets that W here on Saturday, just know this will be the first game my girlfriend's coming to with us. So we can't send her home with an L. We can't give her that sour taste. So I know it's going to upset you, but I'll root for Indiana versus Cincinnati the following week if Iowa gets the W this weekend. Is that a fair compromise to you? What do you think?
I think I could take that compromise, actually.
Hey, not a kid. I like that.
I will say, though, which is interesting, if this happens, if Indiana pulls off this win against the Hawks, and they go and play Cincinnati, who's number 8 in the nation, you guys got a heck of a schedule, like back to back there. People are picking Cincinnati to go undefeated and be a group of 5 in the college playoffs. So,
Right.
They have to beat Notre Dame and Indiana, as well as, which I think they can run through the AAC no problem. I mean, is there anyone even worthwhile in the AAC this year? Because Memphis isn't good anymore. I mean, UCF isn't what they were 3 or 4 years ago. So really all they have
you mean national champions? Sorry.
Oh, Jesus Christ. No.
So really all they have to do, I guess, is beat Notre Dame and Indiana, and sure, they'll go undefeated.
Well, to be fair, when all the Big 12 rejects go to the AAC, they might be slightly more respectable, but probably not. Okay, like Iowa State. Nah. Okay.
Had to throw that in there, right?
Yeah, just a little quick Iowa State jab. Nothing wrong with that. So,
Oh yeah.
And then the last question we got from the mailbag comes from the Murphy group on Twitter at AdamEdge16. He wants to know, guys, who has the special teams advantage this week? He did point out there's a 30% chance of rain in the morning. So if that were to, go through to the game, which I don't think it's expected to, but playing hypothetical here, wet balls getting thrown around. I think Iowa's got the advantage there where running that pro style offense, I think they would have the advantage there, especially with our punting game, maybe not necessarily kicking game, because I know Indiana's got a pretty good kicker as well, but what do you guys think?
I would say Indiana has the advantage there, especially within a kicker who's got a ton of experience. Shudak doesn't have a whole lot of experience other than the long field goals and then some kickoffs, but other than that, it's all been Keith Duncan. I'll take Torrey Taylor every day till I die, but I still think that Indiana has a little bit of the advantage, even if there's some sort of inclement weather.
Okay.
Sorry about it.
What do you think, Freddie?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of took my point. I was going to say, I mean, Chuck Campbell is hell of a kicker, one of the best in the Big Ten. So even if it's inclement weather, I don't think we're going to have a problem getting some field goals in if we can't score. So I think 3 points, as much as we all like good field position from a punt, 3 points is better than good field position from a punt. So
True that. That you're not wrong there. So
Perfect, guys. Well, if that's all the questions we got, we can go ahead and end our chat with Freddie and this episode the way that we always do. Which, sorry, Freddie, you may want to earmuffs for this one, but it's the Iowa Victory Polka. It's the song we're going to be listening to at the end of the Iowa-Indiana game this Saturday.
That's right. Right about 5:30, 6 o'clock. So we're going to be hearing this one jamming.
But I appreciate you getting on the podcast with us here. It's been great having you. Love to hear your takes. It was excellent.
Yep. And all the fans go and follow Freddie. He's only a slightly IU homer, so that's okay. It's good to have a little diversity on your timeline. His @ is red_dead_Fred. So good guy to follow.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys having me on. It was fun. Glad to hear a little bit about what you guys have in store for us this weekend, and glad I got to tell you what we have in store for you. So
hell yeah, man, we appreciate it.
Perfect. Without further ado, we will go ahead and kick it over to the Hawkeye Pep Band.
The Hawkeye Marching Band.
Oh.